morning to you, and welcome back to today's JRPG Weekly Update. I'm SuperDerek, and guys, I feel like a few things have happened since you and I last chatted, so let's cover the news and see what happened. This first piece of news is coming to us from Level 5. Akihiro Hino has said some pretty interesting things that's quickly turned my head. He's the CEO of Level 5 and was responsible for helping create some of my favorite games ever made, Dark Cloud 1 and 2, Rogue Galaxy, and Dragon Quest 8. Now, he's also had a hand in, making Yokai Watch and other interesting titles like that I've not yet played, but Deca Police looks good. That said, he has said something kind of interesting that I was not expecting. He's interested in creating some games that include some pretty mature themes, including more violent kinds of video games and games that feature eroticism. That's kind of an interesting left turn to make after a bunch of Yokai Watch games, I'd say. But you know what? I'm here for it. Let's see what he does. I'll be interested to see this man cook. Now, his remarks do suggest some potential for diversification of the studio's offerings, tapping into some untapped reservoirs of interested markets, I was recently talking to Baku on an episode of HitPoint about, how it does seem like waifus sell games these days, and this could be one potential way to get in on some of that action, so to speak. So we'll just have to see how this goes and what that transition into this kind of game content looks like, because he does have a history of making some very, very good games, and I just can't quite in my head fathom how this is going to work. But hey, that's not for me to figure out. Now, while Akihiro Hino has expressed an interest in these kinds of games, he hasn't made mention of any specific projects or games. There's no announcements, no timeline given or anything like that. So it's probably still just stuff in the conceptual stage, and perhaps we shall see more of this in the future. I'll be sure to keep you updated in another episode of the JRPG Weekly Update. Now, this is another one that is pretty dang interesting and has, I think, captured the attention of a lot of people, and in part may be responsible for me making today's video. So let's talk a little bit about Square Enix, and they're talking about reporting a pretty extraordinary loss of about $150 million due to abandoning projects. We're not going to talk about it in depth too much here. I think this is going to be something Baku and I talk about in depth in an episode of HitPoint on Sunday. So make sure you're subscribed so you can, hear us talk about that. But it sounds like the basics of what they've talked about here is they're going to be doing a change in an approach to how they develop games. It sounds like they're going to be a little bit more selective in the kinds of projects that they greenlight, which is probably for the better. There's been a lot of Squaresoft games that have come out in pretty rapid succession, and I feel like with their release rate, it's been pretty hard to kind of keep up. So this could be a good strategic shift in the long run, but I feel like a lot of us are very concerned about what this means for a lot of our beloved games. And the long story short is we don't really know quite how this is going to affect the games that we have been looking forward to. I personally really don't suspect that they're going to be canceling Dragon Quest 12 or the new Final Fantasy, whatever that is, or even Kingdom Hearts. It's really going to be a lot of the smaller projects that they're probably not going to be working on anymore. I don't anticipate that this should affect Visions of Mana, since they've already announced that. It's probably a lot of unannounced things that will probably have been affected. And let's hope that this change of strategy will help prevent us from witnessing another falling Babylon, if you know what I mean. Rabbit and Bear Studios have announced a bug fix that they have released for the Nintendo Switch version of the Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes title that just recently released, to fan acclaim and to non-fan detriment. But I will say, maybe this is something that we'll talk about on HitPoint, but I will say that the Nintendo Switch version has been pretty notoriously bugged with this release, which is another reason that some fans of the games are a little bit disappointed. For various reasons, honestly. It doesn't run the best. There's a bug in the cooking battle minigame. And that's actually what this update is about. It is addressing that cooking battle minigame that does prevent people from being able to recruit somebody in particular, which is really frustrating for a game that's so heavily focused on that whole recruitment thing. So hopefully this will also resolve other issues included in this patch, and hopefully it further addresses player concerns. And I think that one of the big takeaways from this is the fact that this is showing that Rabbit and Bear Studios are continuing to support the game and to continue to support the Nintendo Switch. When they launched the initial Kickstarter, they said that it was going to be launched on whatever the Nintendo Switch's successor was. Clearly, they had not anticipated having to backport this title to such a underpowered system at this point in time. So we'll just have to see how things go and hope that they can pull this through. But at least this is a sign that they are listening to fans' concerns and are making efforts to actually move forward and resolve things. Now it's time to talk about a couple of new games that were recently announced, starting with That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, which is an Isekai title that was announced for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles, the Nintendo Switch, and PC. It's based on a pretty popular anime, and I believe that is also in turn based off of either a manga or light novel. I haven't really read up too much on it, but it seems like the anime is the one that's really, at this point in time, pretty popular. So keep your eyes peeled for this. We'll provide additional updates as they come out. The next title that we're going to talk about, though, is Death End Request Code Z. The game was already announced, but we got a few additional details and some screenshots of the title. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Death End Request is a pretty interesting title that was developed by some of the original staff behind the original Corpse Party. It is a 3D sort of try not to die sort of game, and I feel like that by try not to die sort of game, I'm talking about games that a wrong move, a wrong end results in like a gruesome death for your characters. And that's something that kind of Corpse Party was really known for, and so is Death End Request. And it looks like from those screenshots that were released for Code Z, this is going to be more of the same. It looks like this is going to be a continuation of the Death End Request series, which combines RPG gameplay, visual novel elements, and a pretty dark and unsettling setting. So make sure you check that out. I'm sure that if you're a fan of Death End Request, you're already probably on top of it, but I just needed to make sure you guys knew. In SuperDerek news, I think it's about time that I addressed the elephant in the room, and that is we are doing the JRPG Weekly Update right now. It's been a little while, huh? But that said, HitPoint is not ending. HitPoint, for those of you who don't know, is the JRPG Weekly podcast that I've had with Baku-san JRPG for quite some time, aka Weebsauce, and he and I have been talking about the news in a very casual kind of conversational sort of way. And HitPoint is going to continue to be a lot of that, probably even in a better form, because I don't think we're going to cover every little bit of RPG news like I will in the JRPG Weekly Update, and so we'll just mainly focus on a lot of the conversational sides of things that, honestly, like this whole Square Enix thing, I feel like there's a lot to talk about there, and I'm kind of curious to see what Baku thinks about Akihiro Hino's interests at this point in time. So we're going to have HitPoint again on Sundays. Those are returning to Sundays, and I'm pretty excited for that. Also, I did get a couple of pieces in my P.O. box that I wanted to address real quick. They were going to be in an unboxing video that just kind of fell through, so I also wanted to thank Hyperplay RPG and RPGFan.com for this awesome little booklet here of like 300 RPG reviews, mini reviews, recaps, scores. That is just so cool. And if you want your copy, make sure you go to hyperplayrpg.com to snag yourself a copy. Thank you guys for sending this my way. I think this will be really neat to help discover maybe some of my blind spots, because I've definitely got a few of those. And also, this one arrived from Mike. So Mike, thank you for this copy of Unicorn Overlord. I'll be sure to give this a shot at some point. It was already on my to-do list, but now it's in my hands, and I'm running out of excuses not to try it, so we'll definitely check that out. So thank you again, both of you, for sending me that stuff. And I guess if anybody wants to send me something, I have a P.O. box if you want to do that. Also, if you want to leave me a voicemail to play on the JRPG Weekly Update or on HitPoint, you know, we'll just share the same number. You can leave me a voice file at hitpoint@superderekrpgs.com, or you could also just call at 785-337-3805. I think that's right. It's not a screen right now, but I believe that's right, and it wasn't. And that leaves us with the JRPG Weekly forecast. Starting with May 9th, we've got East 3 Wanderers from Ys for PC 88. It's coming to Nintendo Switch. It's from Falcom. This was the PC 88 original version of the game that sounds like it's coming to Nintendo Switch. I haven't been able to find really very much information on this, if this is part of Nintendo Switch Online or how you're going to be able to acquire it, but it's on Metacritic's upcoming, so I'm just gonna go with it. We'll figure it out later. That's kind of interesting. Now, I did also find Cryptmaster. This is an indie RPG from developer Paul Hart. This is a word-based dungeon crawling adventure title featuring undead companions and eerie enemies that is coming to PC. And it also has a very interesting kind of black and white aesthetic that certainly catches the eye. And then following that, on May 10th, we've got Initia and the Binding Brand by Shimobashira Workshop. This is a Japanese RPG made by Japanese developers, featuring a nun who needs to pay off a mountain of debt to prevent the demolition of a church and an orphanage, and she needs to take up various odd jobs in order to help prevent that from happening. And that is also coming to PC via Steam. So I think that's about it for today, but make sure you come back next week. Come back for HitPoint also on Sunday, because we're going to be talking about more of the news in depth and get some more of my thoughts out into the ether, you know, and yeah, I think it's going to be fun. And I think that this was fun. I'm glad to be back. I feel like I haven't had a chance to really talk very casually with y'all too much lately, so this is kind of a nice way to kind of bring it all back. By the way, if you like my HitPoint t-shirt, make sure you go over to shop.superderekrpgs.com and get yourself a shirt, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.